Hey, what is up, guys? My name is DFree, and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super episode review. Forgive me if the audio sounds a little bit funny. I typically predicate myself on my audio quality for my recordings and whatnot, but today I'm kind of on the go, so I'm recording this on my iPhone. So I'm going to talk about the episode. I'm pretty sure did I say episode 53? It could be episode 52. I'm pretty sure it's 52. I'm not looking at it, so don't crucify me for that. But we're going to talk about the episode here just really quickly. The episode is basically I want to say a interaction between Gohan and Trunks for a couple of different reasons. Trunks, in the beginning of the episode, has a flashback where he explains to Piccolo and Krillin why Gohan is such an important person to him. He explains a bit of their backstory, which I did like. I don't think he ever truly explained the whole Gohan aspect back in Dragon Ball Z. Somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he really explained too much about Gohan. I think he might have brought it up a couple of times, but he never really elaborated. He went in and explained how Gohan died to Piccolo and Krillin. So I did like that, by the way. Now, another reason why the interaction is important is because it helps to reiterate Trunks' motivation. At the end of the interaction with him and Gohan, he's flying back. He's like, thank you. I now know what I need to do, what I'm fighting for. I think that's very important for this guy. And he did have a line there where he said, I promise I will be the one to defeat Black. Now, I don't know if Dragon Ball Super is bold enough to actually let somebody besides Goku legitimately beat a main villain. I don't know if they're bold enough, but I do like that. I would really love that idea if Trunks is the one to beat him, because I just think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, they kind of did him justice in that they let him go back to his timeline and beat his main villains, but he didn't beat the versions of those characters from the main timeline. Obviously, Gohan was one to beat Cell, so I do think that would be really interesting if they did that. I don't think that they are bold enough to do so. I'm probably going to drop a video on that this week. I don't know who will get on the video with me, but I think that'll be an interesting video. Now, another thing that I did really like about this episode, because once again, it's just this. One thing I'm going to throw out that I didn't like is how in the preview of last week, they made it seem like the Universe 10 stuff and the Zamasu stuff would be kind of like a side plot that was going on while the Trunks and Gohan stuff was going on. Like, because they do that sometimes. Well, actually fairly often, where they run two things at once. For example, in the first couple episodes, like 47, 48, whatever the case is of this arc, they had that whole Goku and stuff like that farming and stuff, like when they're flashing back to Trunks' timeline, or no, excuse me, while they're explaining what's going on in Trunks' timeline, so they're kind of just bouncing back and forth. I thought they were going to do something similar. They kind of made it seem like they were, but what they did, and I didn't like this, was they saved that stuff for the end of the episode. You know, it was the end of the episode and they ended on a cliffhanger. So why did they even put that in the preview? You know, it wasn't a part of this episode. Literally, it was in the last 30 seconds of the episode, last minute. So I didn't like that. I felt like that was a massive dick tease because I did want to know about that. But I can't deny that I did enjoy a lot of the episode because it was a very serene episode. I think it was very well written. I think it was handled and executed really well. It was a very slice of life episode, but it did fit within the context of the series and the arc so far. It's not like a filler slice of life type episode, but I did like seeing Gohan making another cameo into the series. I always love when that guy is in the series. And one thing that I did love, really, was the fact that Trunks was just so enamored with the way that Gohan turned out. His first interaction is, man, this is the same Gohan. He's looking at him up and down. He's like, this is the same guy that beat Cell. He's just like, wow, this is totally different. And, you know, he's just watching the whole time. He's just in shock. Literally, the whole episode, he's in shock. He watched him do the Great Saiyaman stuff. He's like, who is this guy? You know, there was a few funny moments in there where they kind of hinted at the fact that Trunks does know who Satan is. So that was interesting too. And I really did love Gohan kind of just like, hey, this is my wife. This is my daughter. This is her father, all that stuff. He's just so happy to show Trunks his whole family and how things have progressed for him. And Trunks is just... he was just in shock. And it wasn't a bad shock either. It was like, wow, I didn't know that there was a side to Gohan like this. You know, because he didn't really experience this type of Gohan, because the one he is accustomed to, who's almost the same, who would have been pretty much the same age as, you know, they're pretty much the same age when you think about it. The Gohan in the current timeline is pretty much the same age as future Gohan, because I have to do the math, but the Bulma in the current timeline is legitimately probably about 2 or 3 years younger than she was when she made the timeline in the future, or the time machine in the future, excuse me. So it's almost pretty much the same ages at this point. So he's looking at him. He's like, man, this guy's totally different. He's not who I remember, not who I would have expected, because I saw how how I left him. You know, he was a fighter, he was the strongest person. And he's just enamored by that, and he even he's had flashbacks and stuff like that. I will say that I did like them reanimating that future Gohan stuff. I don't particularly too much care for that version of Gohan. I've said so before. I do like this version of Gohan. I just don't like the fact that they leave him out. And the one problem that I had with this episode was it felt like it was an episode they gave Gohan dedicated to Gohan simply so they don't have to show him again for the next 10, 15 episodes. That's literally what they're going to do. Mark my word. They're going to do it because the reason I know this is because at the end of the visit with Gohan, Vidal's like, why did he even come back to the past? And Gohan's like, oh, I didn't even think to ask. And I'm like, seriously? That's literally going to be the thing. Gohan has no idea what's going on, so he has no reason to participate. And them doing that, them having that dialogue in there, literally confirms that for me, is that he just won't be around. And that's not a big deal. I just don't like how they treat his character. That's just my thing. I get that he's busy and stuff like that with conferences over and over, like this guy. Conference. I did like another thing there where Piccolo and Krillin were explaining to Trunks, hey, he's not a fighter anymore. He's left martial arts alone. He's a scholar now. And Trunks validated that was what Gohan always wanted to do. He's like, I'm happy for him. He fulfilled his dream. Thank you. Everybody that's a Gohan fan, this is who this guy always has been. It's not Chi-Chi. It's not like this is some sort of static shift. He became who he was in the future because that's what was needed. Everybody was dead. He was the only one left to fight for peace. He had no choice. Had even Goku been alive, that future Gohan wouldn't have been like that. Had Goku been alive, he would have been a totally different character. He probably would have wound up the same way this guy was because Goku would have eventually found a way to beat those characters. The future timeline would have been totally different. That was out of necessity. That's why he never really got stronger. He was just fighting. It doesn't really make sense how he couldn't get Zenkai boosts and eventually beat them, but, it is what it is. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling. One other thing I did want to throw in there was the whole dynamic between Mai and Trunks. There was a scene where Trunks was looking at Gohan, he's looking at Pan, he's looking at Gohan's family, and he's like, man, if Black never showed up, my future could have been like this. And if they cut to a flashback with him and Bulma and Mai, and it's just like, man, that's so sad. That's so sad that this guy has lost everything. Although we know Mai is alive, he doesn't. So from his perspective, he's literally lost everything and everyone. Multiple times, because the android stuff and now Black. It's just like his future is so dark. It's horrible, There was a little bit of peace there, like we all kind of imagined. He was able to wrap up the Boo stuff in timely fashion before Boo was resurrected, but his future is just garbage. It's really bad. And it really was sad watching him just kind of look at Gohan and his family and Pan and all that stuff. By the way, Pan is a savage. There was a scene where Pan was fighting him for the sword. And she's pulling so hard that when she lets go, this guy falls. And I'm like, damn, Pan, Jesus. But no, in all seriousness, man, this was a really good episode. This is probably one of my favorite episodes, not just because it was Gohan-centric, but because we got a lot of context into Trunks' state of mind. When you look at it from a storytelling perspective, I do think this was a fantastic episode. You don't always need transformations and action and stuff like that to have a really good episode. So I want to know what you guys thought about the episode nonetheless. Once again, this was one of my favorite ones. Oh, I never finished. The Mai stuff, really quickly. The whole way that Kid Trunks is trying to compete with older version of him for Mai's affection is just hilarious. He notices that she totally is in love with that guy. And it's funny too because there's little nods where they're doing the time machine stuff and Bulma tells future Mai to go get a part, and Kid Trunks goes with her, and Mai knows exactly what the fuck she's talking about, and Kid Trunks has no idea, and that's a wink to the fact that Mai is so old. She literally knows exactly what he's talking about, and Trunks is like, no idea, because he's actually legitimately a kid. It's just weird, but I do love it. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video nonetheless. Let me know what your favorite part of the episode was, how you felt about the episode, and if you're hyped. Now, for the next week, we will actually get some context into Zamasu. Turns out that Universe 10 is the realm of the Kaioshin. I don't know if that means that it exclusively has Kaioshin, but we'll get to see Zamasu fight. Apparently, he's a Kaioshin in training, a prodigy fighter too. So that really raises questions as to why the Kaioshin from our realm, the Supreme Kai, was totally weak, this guy is fighting on par with what looks to be a Super Saiyan 2 Goku, and we know how strong he should legitimately be, regardless of the power scaling issues with Trunks Super Saiyan 2 being equivalent to Goku's, etc., etc. Gohan and Trunks having the same power of Super Saiyan 1 because they both could power up to where, Goku could sense that from Beerus' planet. Just little inconsistencies, whatever, it doesn't matter. But this guy is fighting a Super Saiyan 2 Goku, and Supreme Kai and Kabuto Kai were totally enamored with a Gohan who was Super Saiyan 2 but was weaker than Goku Super Saiyan 2 at that time. So it doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Nonetheless, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.